In naming this presentation, My Embedded Truth, Creativity and Revelation, I hope to show links between our creative efforts and spiritual growth. I want to show links with our soul understandings. I want to share my understanding that creativity fulfills a connective function with our thought adjuster or the spirit of truth, even without, and perhaps especially without, our conscious awareness. What if I knew that God would come and fill in my center? And what if we all knew that would happen to us? That creating art brings out the serendipitous revelation of God in us. Let me tell you what happened to me once when I was in kindergarten. I started at 4. I might have been 5, but I did a drawing in which I left the center of the paper blank. Sky, land, family, trees, puppies, all to the side. My teacher, I vividly remember, came over and said, "Barbara Ellen, why did you leave the paper blank there? You know better than that." And I was embarrassed in front of the class. I replied, "I'm waiting for God to fill in the center." The Urantia book has many references to our creative minds and certainly describes that fragment of God sent to live with us, known as the thought adjuster. In paper 117.3.5, we read, "Man, a volitional personality, becomes creative in liaison with an adjuster, an impersonal entity, and the result is the flowering of the immortal soul." Art and music are activities around which I have built my entire life. I've come to see creativity as a practice akin to prayer and meditation. It opens us up to the growing soul. Genius has revealed this throughout history. It manifests through us all. We have records of many artists, writers, musicians, and scientists bearing witness to the spiritual serendipities of their creative efforts. I have a quote to share which I believe says things very succinctly and beautifully. Maria Popova of the Marginalian, which is a wonderful internet magazine of literature and art and philosophy, writes, "I was a latecomer to poetry, an art form I did not understand. And as we tend to do with what we do not understand, discounted. But under its slow seduction, I came to see how it shines a sideways gleam on the invisible and unnameable regions of being, where the truest truths dwell, the most difficult and the most beautiful. How it sneaks in through the back door of our consciousness to reveal us more fully to ourselves. How it gives us an instrument for paying attention, which is how we learn to love the world more." In science, we'd say that sideways gleam is describing a form of averted vision or peripheral vision dominance, the way you see a star by looking slightly to the side of it. But it holds true as a description of seeing the hard to see, as in our soul's truths. What Miss Popova ascribes to poetry, indeed of any art form, is true of prayer and meditation as well. Art and prayer both lead us to the instrument being our flourishing souls, growing under the loving gaze of our thought adjuster. That instrument allows us to love more. Averted vision through shining art helps us see. So, let's open up our samples of art and music to see what sideways gleams may reveal to our eyes now. The high mission of any art is, by its illusions, to foreshadow a higher universe reality, to crystallize the emotions of time into the thought of eternity. Since I only discovered the Urantia book in 2018 or 19, nearly all of my paintings and all of our songs I share with you today were created before I knew of the revelation in its papers. And now I'm astounded and delighted by finding passages that relate to my earlier works and thoughts and match or even enlarge their meanings. Was I led all along by my thought adjuster? I hope to hear how some of you have had similar experiences. Now, this painting, Night of Prophecy, marks the first of mine in a style I describe as metaphysical realism, done in 1985. I called it metaphysical instead of metaphorical because I've wanted to recognize how we change essentially when once we learn something of soul importance. Profound lessons prompt a metamorphosis of personality and growth of our soul. It looks serious, and it is, but it was born out of a hilarious moment. I was home alone. My sons were in school, and I was ironing. My ear began to ring with tinnitus. I suddenly remembered the national emergency broadcast tests that were run on our TVs in the early 60s. The ones when a test pattern would interrupt the show and a high-pitched, annoying tone would sound something like that. The announcer's voice would come on to say, "This is the National Emergency Broadcast System. This is just a test. If this were a real national emergency, you'd be instructed to turn your dial to whatever local station and follow the instructions." So, when my ear began ringing, I said out loud, "This is Heaven's Emergency Broadcast System. This is just a test. If this were a real emergency, you'd be instructed to turn to page 1142 in your Bible." But why did I just say that? Again, fast forward to 2019, when I was to learn from the Urantia book that heaven really does have broadcasts. One paper that mentions this is paper 26. The broadcasts of Havana flash forth space reports of glory. The news that in very truth, the conscientious creatures of animal nature and material origin have, through evolutionary ascension, become in reality and eternally the sons of God. I had just bought a new Bible, and there it sat on my dresser unopened, still in its cellophane. I walked over to it, unwrapped it, and opened it to find page 1142, which was Matthew 24, when Jesus is telling his disciples the signs before he'll return again to earth. My eyes fell on verse 29. The moon will cease to give her light, and a third of the stars will appear to fall. Suddenly, I pictured a painting that would allow the viewer to witness a prophecy unfolding, like in a cosmic timelessness. I imagined a balcony looking out into sky or over space. Two red granite columns on a broad ledge serve as the alpha and omega to the meanings revealed through the items set there. A Bible open to the image of Christ standing among the seven candlesticks, a watch with its hands set to right before midnight, and a lighted candle are witnesses to stars falling from the sky. Clouds are illuminated as the moon is implied but not shown. I've kept this compositional design of balcony throughout the years for other message paintings, positioning us to gaze out into space to see what will be revealed. And your record tells the truth when it says that this same Jesus has promised sometime to return to the world of his terminal bestowal, the world of the cross. Sailboats and ships have always been fascinating and beautiful to me. They promise a way to occupy space one could never otherwise, speeding along at an airy height above the waves. Heavy canvas sails are translucent with sunlight and shadows. Their rope lines are highly functional, but also like pencil lines on an invisible paper. They're meant to be drawn. Their creaking and slapping sounds are musical. The name Avalon has been used for centuries in Arthurian legends to represent a utopian paradise, a beautiful place of ideals and peace. Even King Arthur's burial place from whence he would rise and return again to rule in Britain. I find it curious and intriguing this myth of the once and future king seems so to copy our belief in the return of Jesus that it seems a shy metaphor. Back in the 12th century, during one of the building expansions of Glastonbury Cathedral, a grave was discovered, a Celtic grave, as it turned out. In it was a skeleton with an iron plaque with a Latin inscription, Hic jacet sepultus inclitus rex autoris in insula Avalonia, which means, here lies buried the famous King Arthur on the Isle of Avalon. To discover the name of Avalon in the Urantia Book as one of our nearest neighbors is extraordinary. How fascinating that we in our earthly culture have maintained such a name from our ancient past, no matter how dim and foggy the memory. The spirit of it remains, of purity, of love, of healing. An ancient map of sorts that perhaps is meant to come into play once again. Meanwhile, I think it would be massively cool to paint the sails of the ships of our minds and sail off to Avalon with music, a jig. Sometime around 1988 or 89, I was invited to enter an art show in Chicago called Art of the Madonna. I was thrilled. I had just finished writing, directing, and acting in a children's musical called How to Believe in a Savior for my church, and this seemed like a welcomed next step in my journey of creativity as a form of praise. I prayed about the painting, wanting to do God's will with it. I longed to paint a beautiful and realistic portrait of the young mother and her child of that era, without any trappings of grandeur, but a treatment lending mystery and symbolism I welcomed. With that in mind, my placing the scene in a cave used as a stable seemed reasonable. Details of the environment are lost in the shadows. Stars can be seen out the opening of the cave beyond her head, perhaps creating a suggestion of an aura. I wanted the viewer to feel part of the scene, as in the role of the midwife coming by to check in on the young mother and child. While the baby sleeps on a soft lambskin, the scene is illuminated by 3 Palestinian oil lamps, the most common lighting at the time. 2 are lighted, symbolically, one for the father by her right hand, while one for the son by the baby's face, while the unlighted lamp symbolizes the spirit to come, the spirit of truth. She points to it with her left hand. I worked on this painting for 2 years and naturally missed the deadline for the Chicago show. Luckily, there was another show at the International Marian Research Institute Library at the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio. It was accepted there and hung there for a year beyond the end of the show. And while there, a group of individuals, a theological PhD candidate, and some nuns and priests, felt this painting needed to be sent to Pope John Paul II because he had declared himself a Marian pope. And this portrayal of Mary was as a real human being, not an icon or statue. Eventually, I donated it so they could present it to him. It was in 1989 that I experienced a cruel and shocking thing. I suffered domestic abuse. I labored in my prayers to forgive. I prayed to get over my anger and my shame. I prayed to heal my damaged body and spirit. I prayed for my sons to be safe. My Christian faith was constantly being ridiculed. I was at a loss to understand how to get over all of this. I constantly was in anguish and praying, and drew this drawing as a prayer on paper, so Christ's suffering would cover my own.
I'm in the midst of a cool season when I don't know where to go. It just ain't the kind of weather to make decisions. I think I'm slipping. I've got such cold feet. I'm trying to dance upon the ice floes.
I drew at first by candlelight to see the flickering shadows, then would correct and refine the pencil marks in daylight. With the compositional theme of balcony and stone column, the energy is focused on the objects on the tray. The linen towel is the shroud. The pewter goblet on its side is both the battered body of Christ as well as the empty tomb. The roll is the communion bread as well as the stone rolled away from the entrance of the tomb. And the crystal goblet is the resurrected body of Christ. I did not know of the Urantia body then, but the crystal goblet fits with that new understanding. Overseeing all is the flame of God reflecting onto the stone column, which carries, like the strength of eternity, carries the message out to the cosmos. I entered this drawing into an international art competition held in Montreal. It was accepted. What struck me then as remarkable were the circumstances of its delivery to the show. I couldn't drive it up to the gallery, so I had to send it. I chose UPS. When the time came, I took the drawing down from its nails on the wall, cleaned it, wrapped it in white foam sheeting, placed it in a new, never-before-used shipping container, and sealed it. Then UPS would pick it up and deliver it to the art show in Montreal on the third day. By this strange synchronicity, odd as it may seem, I knew that God didn't despise me and cause this evil thing to happen. Both my Father and Jesus loved me, and they understood how it felt. Now, as the mortal transit of Jesus, the Urantia resurrection of the Son of Man completed. Painting sky scenes has always been important to me. I love the glorious impossibility of painting air, the colors, the changeable quality that even makes the canvas disappear. I love weather watching, and even the humor of humidity and spirit that permeate the sky. For this one sky, I needed a balcony as a reference point because I knew there was a meaning I needed to focus on. I had read of the kings of the Asturias, a province in Spain where in the 8th century the kings had turned their castles into chapels so they could worship safely, since the local churches had been destroyed by the invading Moors. I saw a photo of a triple arched window of golden limestone and thick Romanesque columns. It caused my plastic imagination to go into overdrive. What would it be like to look out that window, to see the sky at dawn? What objects might be on its ledge? I thought of the passage in Isaiah, "Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing rise up speedily." I had the perfume jar, the handkerchief, the cinnamon sticks, and I placed them on a window ledge in our house. But still, imagine they were resting on a stone balcony ledge with blue marble or jasper veined columns and 3 arches. In paper 26, your first transition was indeed death, the second an ideal sleep, and now the third metamorphosis is the true rest, the relaxation of the ages. So, there was a reason I felt I needed to have 3 arches overlooking the sky. For the 3 transitions characterized as death, sleep, rest. The columns I thinned out and made more colorful than the Romanesque ones I had seen photographed. The capitals I painted with shapes symbolizing a metamorphosis rising up on toward the abacus atop. And later I realized the clouds reaching out to each other across the sun make a slight reference to the reaching hands of God to Adam in the creation of man in the Sistine Chapel. The Light of Healing was the last painting I did for several years as I was beginning to lose my eyesight to fast-growing cataracts. At the time, I was unaware why I didn't feel comfortable holding my brushes or pencils anymore. At the same time, I would frequently awaken in the morning, feeling like I'd been playing a stringed instrument in my dreams. These were days of many tumultuous, severe, and some wonderful changes for my family and myself. I went through a divorce. I began to sing around the house more. I got involved in community theater and prayer groups at the local church. I began studying for a master's in humanities. Eventually, I signed up for mandolin lessons and met my future husband, John Saunders, a brilliant musician. My sons thought I was acting weird. I was. Unbeknownst to us all, I was becoming a musician. Some poems I had written years earlier found their way now into songs at this time. This was a period of prolific outpouring of creativity in music and spiritual growth. My eye surgery was in 1997, but it took me years before I could again see with a painter's eye. But I was so busy writing and performing music now with John and Silent Lion that I didn't miss it. In 2003, with the boys grown and moved on, John and I moved down to southeastern Ohio to be closer to my parents. I gradually came to feel my visual art instincts returning. I began to pick up the brush now and then, just occasionally to paint as I could feel it. And the healing Savior was a subject I had a great desire to paint.
What is your true desire? What do you really want to know? Stare in the amber fire. What do you see beneath the warm glow? Embers like lucent sadness fall off from memories below. You can study all your maps, but still not walk the land. You can read it all in books, but not understand.
With so many stories about Jesus of Nazareth and so many films about him, doesn't it seem easy to imagine us back then with him when he walked on earth? Can't we imagine ourselves packed in with the surging crowds eager to get closer, to see him better? hear him speaking more clearly? Don't we feel the heat of the sun upon our heads? Don't we breathe in the dust from the roads? Or are these ancient memories sent down to us from those who lived those days, which we inherited along with their stories? Or are they just vivid imaginations? Both the Urantia book and the Bible emphasize that he was a healer. His compassion for us was and is without limits, and his understanding and love deep beyond measure. He longed to see us whole and healthy, intellectually curious, and living joyfully according to the certainty of belonging in our Father's kingdom. Here's another beautiful quote from the Urantia book, giving us an angelic perspective on his healings, from paper 145. Jesus had passed the responsibility of this healing decision to the ruling of his Father. And for those of us who were present to behold this creative wave of healing, it was indeed a thrilling spectacle. This painting is never finished. I love good pencil work, and these figures are still slowly introducing themselves to me. I will probably paint them eventually, but for now, I'm at peace with the intuition and memory working in my mind, a little off to the distance. Another instance, perhaps, of averted vision.
If my eyes have sight to see, am I wiser now to know? If my heart still longs to be where it cannot go, there are moments this reality is nearly coming through, and tonight it might be coming clear with you. What is your true desire? What do you really want to know? Stare in the amber fire. What do you see beneath the warm glow? Embers like loose and sadness roll off from memories below.
It was during a prayer and a meditation of mine on September 21st, 2008, that the song "You Travelers of Time" was born. I use the word born because lyrics and melody came to me swiftly, and I know the Spirit was working through John as he arranged it and put it to music later.
The white bog of Rotherk lies buried neath the stone, awaiting the hour that was foretold to be found and carried home. Come and see its light. Herein you'll read the secret of secrets. Come and hold the white book of Rotherk.
White Book of Rotherk is a real historical book, but in these lyrics, I knew it was a metaphor for something else. I believe now it's a metaphor for the individual soul's history of learning, as if our guardian seraphim write down all our thoughts of value in our journals, all of our victories, all of our flourishings. Certain books are ongoing, and they teach us how to find the key to our secret of secrets. If you believe, as I do, that our true destiny is always to discover God. God is the goal of our journey, our travels, our searching. When I designed the cover for our CD, Ye Travelers of Time, in 2010, I used images of astrolabes as ancient time machines. I knew I wanted to put them in a painting, which I didn't begin until 2020. And by this time I had begun reading the Urantia book and discovering the many ways in which I felt I had been guided by my thought adjuster and the Spirit of Truth, our gifts from God the Father and from Jesus, throughout different times in my life. There were some serendipities I encountered while doing this painting. For instance, I was surprised when I painted in the shadow of the candle holder, as I imagined it would be cast by the flame, that it cast the shape of a cross under the stone column. And also, while I struggled to achieve the glow of ancient brass, I accidentally dropped some light gray pigment into the oil glaze I was using, and it lifted the image into a three-dimensional effect. When I designed the CD cover, I put the large astrolabe leaning against the right column, with Travelers of Time drawn onto the surface. In my painting here, I added a lotus shape in the center, with Havona written in. The names of the 7 sacred worlds of the Father arranged on the perimeter. The pointer is aimed at Ascendington, the place to which we pilgrims set our sights. Ascendington is the actual paradise home of the ascendant souls of time and space until they attain paradise status. Let me mention here that the instrumentals of guitar, banjo, mandolin, or Irish bouzouki are all played by my husband, John Saunders, who also co-wrote most and arranged all of the songs. Our CDs feature other super talented guest musicians on bass and fiddle, keyboards, bodhrán, and penny whistle, with some top-notch sound engineering that brought our ideas into fruition. And now, let us play the third verse of Travelers of Time.
All the weary travelers face their miles yet to go, and rest in the care of their guardian who guides their spirit soul. Have dreams, you are the book. Have dreams, you are the sword of the angel. Come and take a look, ye travelers of time. Have dreams, thou art the book. Have dreams, thou art the sword of the angels. Come take a look, ye travelers of time. Ye travelers of time. Ye travelers of time.
God the Supreme, when you find him, it will be like returning home.
As it is above, so it is below. As the magnet pulls the iron forth, like the compass needle pointing north, I will lead my loved one home. I am yours in grief, and so am I in joy. Just a constant balance in extremes, like the buried treasure map of your dreams. I will always lead you home. Time enough spent on worry. These distract you from your best. Calm your mind and cease your hurry. The way is already blessed, as it was before and will always be. As the car flies o'er the breaking wave, as a child knows how to be brave, I will always lead you home. Timing up is spent on worry. Fears distract you from your best. Calm your mind and cease your hurry. The way is already blessed, as it was before and will always be. As the car flies o'er the breaking wave, as a child knows how to be brave, I will always lead you on. I will lead my loved one home.
I want to thank everybody for listening and watching. I will really look forward to hearing comments. I hope people will be sharing things of their own experiences that are very similar to mine. Hearing yours helps us all. And so stick around, and thank you, Joanne, and thank you, Tim, for helping with this. And it's just been delightful from my end.
All right, well, big round of applause. That was really an amazing presentation. Your art was so lovely, and obviously the music too. I don't want to talk too much. I'm sure people have comments and questions and feedback. So, Darlene, hello.
Hello, what a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I am just so uplifted and inspired by
Oh,
the
thank you.
message. I've got to bring a coincidence here. The Urantia Foundation is in Chicago. Guess where the new Pope is from?
Yes, exactly. How awesome is that?
Year he was born. 1955.
It is exciting. I know. It's like everything is conjoining and reaffirming, and there's energy here. There's a great deal of energy. I just feel like woo, woo, woo.
Great. Yeah, remember
Yes.
how, in the book they talk about how everyone would say, well, could anything good come out of Nazareth, right? They would always be saying that about Jesus. So maybe it's Chicago had a little bit of the same handicap, but now good things are coming out of Chicago. So
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah. Judy.
I just can't believe how beautiful this was done. Beautifully it was done, and the
Thanks.
meaningful points that you brought up. I happen to own one of Barbiel's prints, that last one about
Yes.
healing, and I look at it all of the time, and especially with the pencil drawings that are in there. It's so ethereal, meaningful.
I am so grateful. Let me tell everybody, Judy Farrow was the one who gave me that, let's see what it was, 48, paper 48, because I had skipped that one and I hadn't seen it. And I thought, I'm going to put that quote right there on the first painting, The Night of Prophecy. I love that. Thank you, Judy.
It was my thought adjuster who prompted.
I am so appreciative of that.
Yeah. Judy Koski, did you have something?
I'd like to share a very interesting story related to what we've experienced today. About 5 years ago, it was after Christmas, January, and I like to start looking for really beautiful Christmas cards throughout the year. So I begin in January, right after Christmas. I just enjoy it. So I went to this website called Etsy, and I finally came upon one painting, a print that had Mary and Jesus, and I just fell in love with it. Out of all the ones that I looked at, thousands, I said, this is the one I want to use next year. So this was in January, and so I made the order, and I received a box of these beautiful cards, and I put them away for next year. But about 6 weeks after I ordered the cards and received them, I attended the Urantia Book International School. They had a study group meeting. And so I attended as a visitor, as just a one-time event. And so we entered the class. I entered the classroom and went around, and everybody introduced themselves. And one of the individuals who introduced themselves in this small group of 12 people and went around, and then this beautiful, artistically loving individual named Barbiel introduced herself, and I said to myself, I just ordered these cards, these Christmas cards with the Madonna and Child from a woman named Barbiel on this global website with there's really millions of people all over the world, order from. And it turned out that the painting that we just you saw in this presentation of the Madonna and Child that was the Christmas card print that I ordered. And that just a few weeks later, 6 weeks later, I met the creator of that print in a Urantia Book International Study Group meeting. So Barbiel and I met this way.
Yes.
And I feel like the social architects were involved in this, and we have developed a very, very warm and close, loving friendship.
Oh, yes, we have. And I have to add an addendum to Judy's story, because when I received the order and I saw that she lived in Michigan, I had two thoughts. One is, has she been to the Michigan Renaissance Festival and maybe seen us there? But the second thought, which really I pondered, does she know about the Urantia book? I don't know why I thought that. I really wanted to say something in my card to her. Thank you for ordering these cards. And by the way, do you know the Urantia book? But I held off because I thought, no, that's a bit too aggressive.
A number of us have stories of, running into people in totally different contexts and seeing little clues or hints. And it's just, it is spreading out there. We don't always see it, but it is spreading.
Yeah.
Josh.
I just want to say I was really good. Because I'm a musician as well. And I just wanted to say, has anyone heard of Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they found a copy of the Urantia book in one of his lost luggages in the airport. He had a tattered copy of the Urantia book. And then, Voodoo Child, everyone knows I'm a Voodoo Child. They think that he got the lyric, if I don't see you no more in this world, I'll meet you on the next one, and don't be late.
Aha.
Got that from the
Wow.
It's interesting. There's something about that, right? Like Judy saw the image on the card, you heard the line in the music, and on his face, it doesn't really, say anything, but somehow your spirit is reacting to the spirit that motivated it. I think it's I'm not one to usually say something like that, but there is something behind the power of and when we look at it in art, it's somehow, easier because we're not cluttered up with just everyday, words and things in between, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought the words of art, music is like, you can't, you think something's too small all the time. You want to do these Sistine Chapel painting. No, it's like one thing can be enough to like put the idea in someone's head, right?
Yeah,
I just
that's
thought
very true. And you don't know
that
how
one
many
black
people will
appendix.
notice it or something, you know?
It's the power of art and music, I think, you know?
Right.
It really
Right.
is powerful. I also love in reading the Urantia book to find out that a lot of the broadcasts are musical. I mean, just think about the music in heaven. I am so excited.
Well, Lisa.
I was just going to say that as far as musicians go, I live in Michigan as well, and in the Detroit vicinity. And Jack White is a child of this region here, right? And it just so happens that at where I work, one of his sisters is a volunteer. So a few years ago, he was on SNL as the musical guest. And when he walked out onto the stage, it lit up and it was the 3 concentric blue circles. And it like raised up and he was standing on it and he started playing and he was all in blue and white as well. So it was like, it was too close to be a coincidence. So when I saw his sister Barb a couple of weeks later, I said, has your brother ever mentioned like reading the Urantia book? And she's like, there's like 6 of us in the family when we get together. I know he's a big reader. And he did years ago talk about like something that he discovered that wasn't a religion, but I don't remember what it was. And I wonder if he is also a reader. I thought it was very fascinating how many people are pulled into it.
Well, it definitely
Yeah,
emphasizes creativity. It talks about our minds and how we have to be creative. It's just the way we were made.
thanks. Hera.
When I was very young and at school, I was really into art, and art was everything to me. I just painted all the time. And I wanted to be an art teacher, and I trained to be an art teacher. And I taught art for a year, and the school was so horrible that I decided I never wanted to teach children ever again. So then I went into teaching adults, but not art, other things. And I taught English as a foreign language all over the world and stopped doing art, really. I didn't do much art for many, many years. Then when I was about 50, I discovered the Urantia book and made notes and drew maps and all sorts of things. And soon after that, the first English conference was in a town next to where I was living. So I went along and showed them my maps and things, and they said, well, can you put them on computer? And I had just done a computer course and got my first computer. And I did. And that's how my study aid started. And then suddenly I really got back into art again and doing computer graphics to make my study aids. And so all my art and creativity has been put into those. And I don't know how I did it. I mean, I give thanks to higher beings and my thought adjuster all the time, because I can't even remember making those study aids very well. So that's my story about creativity, really.
That's wonderful. That's great. Thank you, Hera. That's so awesome.
Yeah, there seems to be an infection once somebody starts down the road. It goes to other things, Hera. Lee, or Les, I'm sorry, Les.
I'm a musician also, and I'm just so taken by the beautiful synchronicity between the lyrics and the instrumentation and the frequency that it all emits in coordination with the paintings, of course. Just so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I was especially taken by the one with the line about we are made to search for God.
Yes. Yes.
And I found that so compelling and beautiful. And, when you get to like the essence, certain things that are just like this beautiful core essence in terms of thoughts, that is so profound, and that we have this innate impulse to search for God.
Yes. Wonderful.
Thanks, Les. Lisa?
I was just going to say that the Urantia book talks about this triad of truth, beauty, and goodness. And they really alone don't provide that pathway to God, but together. And I think it's no coincidence that people who discover the book and reawaken this part of the art in themselves to that tapping into that beauty, and then the goodness part of sharing it with other people and spreading that beauty and that goodness and the truth of it. It tells us over and over again that those three things, when tied together, really do lead to God.
It's a really good point, though. It's very dynamic, creative, right? It's the way those three things can interact and create new things. Yeah, it's very nice. I had a question for you, Barbiel. While you were going through your presentation, obviously, when you got to the pieces that were original compositions, those were you and there's original music.
Yes.
And on that last slide, I take it you listed the other excerpts that you used, and mostly they were traditional songs, right?
No, just two of them were. The first and the last song were traditional,
okay.
medieval. Everything else we wrote.
Oh, okay.
Everything
So
else.
my question was, for the things that you wrote, I mean, you used them for a particular slide. Did you have that concept in mind for that piece of music, or the music, you're just using what you felt was appropriate music? In other words, on slide 4 or 5, you played a certain
Both.
kind of
Yeah.
music.
It
I'm just
was
wondering.
both.
Yeah.
For instance, on the slide that showed the balcony with the sunlight, the dawn, that's
Mhm.
the light of healing. The song that I played with it was one that John wrote that I titled Kings of the Asturias, because it had kind of a a Spanish flavor, and it was romantic, passionate banjo, which you don't hear that often. So that one was specifically for that painting. Another one that was
Okay.
specifically for the painting was the Travelers of Time, because
Okay.
when that song came to me after my meditation and prayer, I just knew it was both song and painting. It was both.
Mm.
But it took me a decade to get to the painting, whereas the song came, much earlier. And then the one that is interesting, that I solely wrote by myself, John still arranged it, but the one for the battered chalice, Dancing on the Ice Floes, I wrote that when I was 25. I wrote that first as a poem and then set it to music later, but still it fit the feeling of the drawing because I was emphasizing my total inability to grasp things, couldn't go anywhere. I was just totally wiped out emotionally, and so Dancing on the Ice Floes really fit that drawing. And it's funny because I didn't really know that until I started putting this presentation together, and I thought, okay, I know how it came about as a drawing. That's vivid to me. It's just my prayer on paper. And so it really fit the travesties that I was facing without over dramatizing. You should not have dramatic lyrics. I hate things that are so dramatic. But when you put them in a metaphor, then you really you get an emotion to communicate it. How many other people in their lives have felt they were going through a period where it's a cool season, not right for making decisions, and they can't move forward. They're dancing on an ice floe. And just imagine what that would be like. But you're not trying to tell people what their emotion is. You're just sharing that. And so the metaphors are so important. That's what I think. But I love doing those medieval songs too, though. And I would love to make a presentation with that too, because some of those are so amazing, amazingly deep.
Yeah, they're so simple on one hand, but yet there's a lot of meaning packed into just those simple, what sounds like a simple tune, and the emotion it can convey. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also allows then the musicians to step out on it. and really explore it. So you get a lot of jamming on it. And you're right, something from the 13th century that just sounds like almost a children's melody or something, and then it just goes off. Woo!
Right.
It can be fun.
Right, because they didn't write it down like we did with every second
Not
accounted for.
in the same way.
Yeah.
No, they
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
not for centuries. Yeah.
Joanne.
Barbiel, it sounded like you had a bit of a hiatus when you were struggling with your cataracts and you didn't paint for a couple of years.
Yeah, more than a couple. Yeah.
More than a couple. Yeah. So I think
it was
about
a decade.
2002. I remember him healing us. It looked like your style changed a little bit. Did it or?
Interesting. I don't really think it did. But I can't say that for sure because I'm not seeing it like from your vision.
Mhm.
I know that in between all these years, I was doing landscapes and abstract paintings too. But these are the ones that I feel stand out with a certain path of life running right through them. And the one with, I remember him healing us. I almost everything. I don't travel. I've had such a dull life, but I love books. So I see so much in books. And a photograph of, where Jesus walked in the Holy Lands. And just the sun setting when the sky is kind of that buttery yellow and it just diffuses through everything. So what look like solid objects like trees and rock just become alive with color. So those were some of the things I was thinking.
I really liked the pencil sketching. There's something about that. It kind of I felt like it allowed me to fill in the blanks a little bit and
yes,
almost
absolutely.
participating in it. Yeah.
No, you should. That's exactly what I want. I want people to feel that. And I realize over the years, there's a danger in overworking something. And once you've done that, forget it.
I actually had the same thought, Joanne. I thought, with your eyesight being affected, even if you don't think about it consciously, did it change the way you look at things and the way you then reproduce things or portray things on the canvas? And, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that Monet, he had eyesight problems at the end of his life. And of course, you get all these blurry pictures that are some of the most beautiful things ever created, but, in part maybe
Yes.
because of how he was seen.
I am sure that it all is in the mix somehow. I think it was a mercy, though, that I lost my eyesight. It was kind of a fresh start.
So people can go to your to your website. They can buy prints and things.
You can buy now. You can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes. So YouTube, John Saunders Banjo at YouTube, and then I'm going to be putting up some of mine fairly soon, I hope.
Judy, Farrell.
And Barbiel, you might mention too, if some people would like to buy prints of your art, where they can find that.
Are available on Fine Art America.
Now, do you still have originals or are they all gone?
No.
It must be hard to sell your originals.
No, I have Light of Healing and Ye Travelers of Time. They are here in the room with me right now.
No kidding. Wow.
I have the ship sailing to Avalon, and I have the Battered Chalice. They're in the music room. And I'm constant. Oh, and I also have I remember him healing us because that's going to be next 20 years. I'll still be penciling.
Yes, you're still working characters. On it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a very slow worker. I might just, study it for an hour and then just do a little tiny mark on it. And then that's it. It's just my style. Very frustrating for people, I'm sure.
Well, I just remember Judy telling us the story of how she bought those Christmas cards and then met you. And I think it was so serendipitous and fun. So
yes,
I'm really happy to have seen your art. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Joanne, didn't you say earlier on too, that you had a story to share about some serendipities that you had experienced?
Oh, I did. Well, it's not art though.
Well,
but it was creative. Yeah. I always had a dream of opening a tea room. And it's just something that, and then the more I dreamed about it, the more real it became. And then my father died and left me a little money. It's like, oh, so now I had the money. And it's like everybody I met contributed a piece to it. Because I remember, like, for example, I used to be very involved with the Council of Catholic Women. So we were at a neighboring parish, and I'd been thinking, who can I get for waitresses? Because I'd like to have mature, be better to have mature women. So I sat down to this lovely woman. I was sat next to her on the pew, and she was from Ireland. And then she motioned to a couple of her friends who were from the British Isles. Well, they were part of the Daughters of the British Empire group. And I just started talking about the team, and oh, I would love to work there. I would love to work for you part-time, and they were, oh yes, I would love to do that too. And it's like, well, okay, so now I've got my waitresses, and everything was just unbelievable. And then I found a space which was perfect. And we were going to sign the lease on a Friday. And Thursday night, my husband came home and said, you won't believe it. I was like, what? He goes, he worked for Philips Consumer Electronics. He said, the company's moving. We're relocating to another city. And it was like a miscarriage. It was just awful. I mourned it. So we moved here to Atlanta. And it was really hard to give it up. But then I got here, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't meant to be here, but it was meant to be in Knoxville, where we were before. And,
Wow.
But it was really where I learned, I think, about the power of intention, and also just that inner guidance. And I remember one time I was out on my back deck, and I actually got down on my knees and in gratitude and said thank you, because it was all just so beautiful and so fun and so rewarding.
Yeah.
So whatever that was, even though it didn't manifest, it was still a wonderful experience. And I learned a lot that has helped me in other parts of my life. So.
That's wonderful. That is so cool.
Yeah,
You're
thank
being
you all.
coy. That's fun.
It's been great. And thank you, Barbiel. It was a great way to end our season with something so creative and special. And happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers, and to all of us. We all have a mother. So happy Mother's Day to everybody.